What is the biggest mistake founders make when they transition from doing to leading?
As you scale the company, suddenly you are bringing people to do anything. So how do you delegate? How do you let go of things?
Technology speeds up growth, but leadership determines direction, timing, and survival. 70% of business transformations don't fail because of bad technology. They fail because leadership could not keep up with the growth. Nugata, an AI code data analytics startup, despite landing impressive enterprise clients like PepsiCo and Colgate and raising a whopping $28 million, still shut down. The reason? Leadership could not build a system to turn pilots into repeatable, scalable revenue. So what separates the founders who build fast from the ones who build the last? The early signals that a startup is becoming unscalable, even if the growth numbers are still looking very strong.
I think the unscalable piece comes in, as you mentioned, like if the growth is strong, which means the revenue and the momentum is there. But if it's unscalable, I think it comes down to what is the bottom line look like. And this is where, like going back to the shared world, like Lime and Bird, they struggle with it, right?
So what does it actually take to lead a company through scale, not just grow it? Today, Forbes recognized serial entrepreneur Chinmay Malaviya, the man behind Ridepanda, an e-bike startup based out of New York, shares what he has learned the hard way about leading and scaling a business that actually lasts. Hi everyone, this is Amir. I'm the co-founder and COO at PureLogics. Welcome to another episode of PureLogics Pulse. Today we are going to discuss lessons in leadership and scaling a business. And I'm joined by a man who is visionary, a serial entrepreneur with a proven track record of building a great startup. He was named as one of the most influential entrepreneur by Forbes back in 2016. And now he's on a mission to reduce carbon footprints in transportation through his startup called Ridepanda. Chinmay, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Amir. Thanks for the kind intro. Excited to chat with you today.
Thank you. So tell us about your new venture, Ridepanda. What problem are you trying to solve?
No, great question, Amir. So when you look at the US, right, transportation is the number one cause of emissions here in the US, right? And half of that comes from passenger cars. And if you look at all the American cities, right, majority of the car trips are also on 0 to 5 miles, right? So there is this opportunity where if you look at the whole climate change problem and look at what's going on in the cities, there is a strong alternative that doesn't have to be a car. Which is which is micromobility, electric bikes, electric scooters. Again, in terms of timing, if you were in 2014, 2012, these vehicles were not a thing. What has changed dramatically starting the 2017, is that we have now so many different types and kinds of electric form factors out there, from electric bikes, electric scooters, that can have a dent on the trips that I mentioned, going back to the problem we're after. So I'm really excited about it. I think there's a unique opportunity that the electric form factors offer in doing that actual mode shift to get people out of cars with these fun, healthier, sustainable vehicles. You use it for commute. Commute tends to be something that people call stressful and expensive and that time suck, and convert that into an activity that's fun, that's joyful, that makes you healthy, and so on and so forth.
Right. Got it. And you mentioned about the term micromobility. Could you please elaborate it?
Yeah, micromobility really means it's everything on that is a smaller, lighter electric vehicle. So it's not a 4-wheel car. Everything on 2 wheels or even 1 wheels falls into the category of micromobility, right? So one of the big most popular vehicles are electric bikes. Then there are, of course, electric scooters that are another one. But everything 2 wheels, 3 wheels, lighter weight comes under this category of micromobility. When we look at the EV revolution, the first eye goes to electric cars and Tesla, which are part of the solution. But
Right.
if you look at traffic and congestion, if you look at just how the majority of how the trips are happening in our cities, there's a real opportunity for micromobility to also increasingly play a dominant role, and that's where this comes in.
Right. And I was reading that, your model is more like a Netflix style subscription. So why is that the ownership or long-term subscription is better than the drop and go shared model? Why did you choose that?
Yeah, so drop and go share model, which is like that led by leading companies like Lime and the scooter sharing world, or there's city bikes in New York City. I think they are great when you're out and about. There are a couple of challenges with them. Number one, they are expensive. Like Lime in San Francisco or Austin or Phoenix is now what used to be 15 cents a minute is now 55 cents a minute, which means for a 10-minute trip, you're already paying $10. So if you're just doing those 10-minute trips twice a day, it's $20. And if it's longer, it's $30, sometimes $40. It becomes very expensive very quickly. Number two reason is one size fits all. What if you felt more comfortable on an electric bike, but then all you have is a scooter? Right. And if you look at, or if you go to our website or go online or walk into San Francisco or Seattle, there's so many different types of form factors out there, and they don't do justice to all. And then C, very important point, is reliability. Especially when you look at commute, you want to wake up at 8 a.m., 8:30 you're ready, and you want your ride ready and how you're going to work. If you have to go and search for something and it's maybe there, maybe not there, maybe it's 4 blocks away, maybe it doesn't have the charge, it's not reliable. Then you might be, then you can't trust it as a way to get to work. So I think really what we are doing is not necessarily replacing these options. I think they're great. What we are empowering for is something that's a lot more affordable. Our subscriptions are anywhere from $50 a month to $200 a month on a monthly basis with unlimited use. You can, of course, use it for commute, but you have the vehicle with you. You can ride on weekends. You can take any kind of trips. And that hopefully helps build that behavioral change. B, we empower choice, right? So you can have foldable bikes that you can take into a walk-up apartment or on the public transit to augment your last mile. You similarly have foldable scooters. You have cargo bikes. You can take your kids on the back to drop them to school before you go to work. You have just classic, commuter electric bikes that can help you conquer the hills, which are intimidating for many, and then still have 30, 40, 50 miles range, so you can easily go back to work and come back without any anxiety of, do I have the right charge or not? At the same time, we also offer just, acoustic, non-electric bikes. And some people want to get that extra exercise, and then maybe they're concerned about buying a $2, $3, $4,000 bike, but then they can do that now with a monthly subscription program. And it's also very reliable. It's there with you when you need it. So off you go. And with our subscriptions, we also attach service, we attach insurance, we give you a lock, we give you a helmet, we give you safety onboarding. You can test ride different things. It's month to month, so you can swap or cancel anytime. So really what we're trying to do is like removing every barrier you may have to adopt these vehicles today and do so. And the beauty of that is that then we are able to get completely new people who may not be doing this today to embrace this. Because it's like, hey, why not give it a shot? And something I'm sure we're going to go into further is that the other thing we have done is like we have aligned that with what companies and employers have as their goals to get people back to work in a fun, healthier manner, and then having those incentives to also apply to our subscriptions, which has even reduced even the little bit of the financial barrier there to also to remove that as well.
Right. Awesome. And yeah, I heard that, you guys previously were focusing on B2C model, but then you pivoted to B2B model. Was there any specific reason? Why did you actually pivot for the B2B model?
I think B2B just was a much more exciting business opportunity, right? I think if you look at and also faster path to scale and better unit economics and all of those things. But really, I think what I think going back to mission, right? I think with employers have their own goals to keep, especially in the post-pandemic world, get people back to work. There's a lot of friction around commuting because, hey, I used to do this work at home and now you are asking me to do work. And now I feel the pain and the stress and the anxiety and the expense and the time suck of this commute activity. And that is and employers have, want to reduce that friction, enhance that employee experience. And that's the tailwind opportunity we saw. We are also boosting employee wellness. They can exercise. We give them a beautiful vehicle they can keep. We increase their talent retention because they get something real and physical. Sustainability matters, right? I think especially for the Gen Z or actually even millennials, that the employees do care about what their employers are doing around. And I think we offer them an alternate that's sustainable as well. So I think we're able to see some amazing, ROI for employers and to incentivize these subscriptions. And I think the beauty of the model is that I think what I love the most is that we are not giving people bikes who are already in the market. We're getting people who are not in the market, who are not thinking about it, to do so because of the employer model.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much. And you have carried the name Panda, like, your first startup was Food Panda. So is it a lucky charm or does the Panda represent a specific leadership philosophy? Like, what exactly is the logic behind that?
Yeah, it's a couple of the it's easy to call it. There's something called Food Panda, which we chatted before when the podcast started, which was an online food delivery platform in Asia. And I think there's a couple of reasons. Panda, I think both Food Panda, even for Ridepanda, we wanted to be an approachable, easy, fun brand and a company that invites everybody in, that's inclusive,
Right.
versus the opposite of that. And I think when we were doing Food Panda, it was like getting people who have never tried food online to go online, pay online, which of course are experiences which are we take for granted today. But 2010, 11, 12 was not the case. People were used to doing things on phone and would only prefer cash on delivery, and the apps were not even a thing in Asia, especially, right? So I think there was like introducing, and we wanted to build something that invites people in. Um, when I look at right panda, of course, it came later. I think pandas are also symbol of the environment. If you look at the World Wildlife Fund, also uses the panda. I think sometime where I've also worked in the past, so
Right.
there was that connection too. And it adds a fun personality to the company, right? I think we are memorable, we are fun, we're exciting, we're a symbol of the environment, and I think those ethos really connected with me when it comes to work. And I think that's something I think we've continued.
Got it. And in terms of scaling, I would like to ask, like, when a company starts growing fast, how do you personally distinguishes between the decision between the data driven or, versus the decision that is based on intuition?
I mean, it's a good and a tough question, right? I think the more objectivity you can have, the better. The more ground you can rely on. Okay, I'm making an X decision today based on all of the information I have. The challenge, as you would agree and know, is that in startups there's no perfect information, right? And I think there's also time constraint as well. You can't wait for the perfect information for way too long. So I think each decision depends on the nuance of the context. Some are reversible, some are not. Some are more timely, some are less timely, less urgent. So based on that, I think this has to be almost a daily evaluation of, okay, what are the couple of things I need to decide? Do I have the information I need? And does it have to be, what is the time constraint on it? And based on that, what is the most objective path that I can lean on to? And then you make a decision, right? And I think not all decisions will be correct, but I think on hindsight, of course, some things are more clear, some things are not, but it's on hindsight, right? I think, did I make the decision based on the time constraint with all the information I had to the best of our abilities with the rationality objectivity I had today? And I think that's what I'm looking for. And of course, intuition and life experience and work experience do matter, and they kind of contribute to that. But it's something that I want to. If there is a decision I made, let's say 6 months ago, and I'm like, oh, it actually went in the wrong direction. I mean, I don't want to, at least personally have any regrets. I'm like, well, given that time with all the information, that objectively, that's what we did, right? And it's fine. We kind of predict the future, but we have at the same time commit and move forward.
Awesome. And can you share a time when, scaling decision looked correct on the paper, but turned out to be strategically wrong for you in execution?
I think, yeah, like, so for example, we experimented in the food delivery world, right? A world that I actually come from for something like we do. And I think we quickly learned, we did experiment over a couple of months, right? More than around 6 months. And we learned that it's a completely different type of business, right? Like food delivery doesn't need, um, you know, the sector doesn't care about choice, right? They don't want different things. They just want a tank of a vehicle that can last long. Food delivery has a completely different SLA expectations on service, right? And the food delivery use case, like, just, the vehicles are getting used in a completely different way. The asset is depreciated in a completely different way. So I think it's something that we learned. Maybe, I think, on now in hindsight, it's kind of obvious. Of course, that's the case, right? That's what the customer would value. But I think we were, we had to experiment. We learned a lot, and that's not a business that we do operate today, right? So we decided to not continue with that. Something we can of course do in the future, but I think we wanted to be, going back. We wanted to, uh, the mission was to get more people on bikes, right? Like, that was the thing. And I think we found a different angle to do it. So on hindsight, again, I don't say it's a wrong decision. I think we've learned a ton. We now know why we do X and why we don't do Y. Um, but, but again, of course, if I already knew that, we would have maybe saved that 6 months and our resources and time and effort. So.
And like, consequently, I would like to know, like, what are the early signals that a startup is becoming unscalable, even if the growth numbers are still looking very strong?
I think the unscalable PPs comes in, as you mentioned, like, if the growth is strong, which means the revenue and the momentum is there. But if it's unscalable, I think it comes down to, what is the bottom line look like, right? Are we, and this is where, like, going back to the shared world, like Lime and Bird, they struggled with it, right? They had amazing top line growth that continues to be the case. Demand was there. Just the way they were priced, the way the activities around operations, from rebalancing and theft and and the charging and all those things, they were just hard businesses. And I think that just pushed them. And I think it's true for many other companies who have seen tremendous growth, and then they could die down because the business model is just on principle and the bottom line was not strong.
Mhm.
So to be able to manage a dance, both is important, right? In the venture back world, growth of course matters, but it's also not about the growth at all costs. But it has to, even if you don't have the bottom line figured out today, you have a clear line of sight and path, right? In our case, the business we are in, given some of the concerns and challenges sharing companies have faced, or even the e-bike OEMs have faced, our scrutiny expectation on bottom line is even stronger and higher in terms of the bar, and I think we have embraced it. But that's what I would say. I think it's it's growth at all costs maybe can be justified in times when there's a lot of venture capital, but it
Right.
doesn't necessarily give you if there's no path to a real business model in economics. The wind may change and suddenly you're like out of business because people don't believe in the sector or your company or whatever you name it.
And you guys, just secured $12.6 million. Congrats on that, raise. In this economic climate, what specific scaling lever are you most excited to pull with this capital?
Yeah, the capital. I think we are the market leader in the US, albeit still early in our we're still scratching the surface of the companies we work with, and I think we're excited for the growth. So I think it's that the capital goes into growth, right?
Mhm.
It's going into like how do we scale our business? How do we get more companies excited about what we do? How we get even more adoption within already the companies we work with. We are working with some of the leading tech companies like the Amazons and the Googles of the world, but also increasingly, hospitals and universities and city governments and law firms, etc. So I'm pretty excited about it, but I think that the dollars in the bank, just of course, as you can imagine, are resources for us to be able to, of course, objectively use to grow the company.
Right. And out of curiosity, with this B2B model, do you believe that, the scaling pace will remain the same as B2C, like, where, everybody can easily sign up and, just in the momentarily. In your case, like you have to go to each and every institutes. Like, how does it actually work?
Yeah, it's a B2B2C model, as you call it, right? B is
Mhm.
just you can go and run an ad on Instagram, and then you know your CAC, and as you
Right.
said, maybe there's a potential
Mhm.
faster path to grow, TBD, right? Mark. But yes, there's we can make an assumption there. To see, of course, there's a B2B element, right? So we have to
Mm.
have, get it's a land and expand strategy, right? We have
Right.
to get the companies excited, lean in, show them the ROI, work with them, and then drive awareness within the company. So it's the second part. Yeah, I think it's debatable like which one is faster. I think we do think that the direction we're taking, I think there's so much more gains around just a tighter, stronger retention, getting new people excited to embrace this. There's a lot that we're gaining from what we're approaching, right? So I think that is making sense for us. But yeah,
Right. And generally, do you believe that, there is a way to differentiate during the scaling time, like, differentiate between the vanity metrics and actionable, metrics? Like, how would you distinguish, between both metrics?
yeah, I mean, I think I think metrics matter, right? And at the same time, like we have our own dashboards, and I imagine many companies and startups have, and you can, dashboards don't just have two metrics. Their dashboards can have 20, 50, 100 metrics and 100 different, like dashboards and all that. So I think in the end of the day, you have to come back to what really, really, really matters. What are
Mm.
the four things that, that you have to achieve this quarter or this year? And then of course, each of them you can double click and say, for example, sales. Okay, you want to have X companies, and then you can of course measure the quality, the number of leads you're getting, the conversion rates, and things like that. All of those things matter, but I think it's like comes down to the four or five main core metrics. You set up a plan around that, and then you of course double click wherever you have to double click to get to that goal. It starts from the top, right? Or you can easily get lost in maximizing a metric of something that like it's not going to move the needle, but you're doing something. It's like, yeah, it's easy to get lost with data. So I think that's really important, especially in the world where we have a lot of data and a lot of insights and a lot of things to talk about. But having that foundation and focus is really important.
Right. And out of curiosity, like, is there any North Star, metric for you guys, like for Ridepanda at this moment?
Yeah, I think we, of course, the way we assess the company is like how many riders we have, right? And
Right.
what is the count today? How many we want to have but like X quarter, year, and so on and so forth, and even in 10 years down the line. That is, of course, comes as a function of how many companies we work with. There is, of course, a penetration within each company so that we can roll back there. That's the North Star, right? That's what we're after. And at the same time, as we talked about earlier, has to be
Mhm.
good business, right? So there's a couple of things that we, of course, measure on economics and all that too.
So it's basically number of rides, right? Versus number of sites.
Riders. Active
right?
riders or active
Active.
subs. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Okay. And let's talk about the little bit about the leadership and your experiences with the leadership. So Food Panda was acquired by, Delivery Hero for staggering $500 million. Looking back, what was the single best operational challenge you faced while scaling to 40 companies?
I mean, I think the challenge. I mean, there were lots of challenges, right? So it's hard to how to go back to one. I think I would say at
Uh-huh.
at Food Panda we were doing Uber for X models like logistics and delivery before it
Uh-huh.
was cool, before we had the infrastructure on apps and smartphones and all that available.
Uh-huh.
So we were not as tech enabled in the early days. Eventually, we did
Uh-huh.
catch up as things improved and got better. DoorDash only launched in the US in 2014 later, and we were already live up in 2012. So I think I think if I could
Uh-huh.
go back, of course, I think we would have used the product and technology layers even much earlier, much faster. I think it would have given us a lot of peace of mind
Uh-huh.
versus the way we had to do because that's where the infrastructure and the resources were. So that's something I will say one big one takeaway we would have. You would also still category building again in a world where the experience was already there. Right, food delivery was we didn't create food delivery; people were already doing it. Right? We
Uh-huh.
just were enhancing that experience, and
Uh-huh.
it of course brought its own operational challenges. And
Uh-huh.
I would like us to have used more technology more, earlier to be able to build even a stronger, scalable foundation.
Right. And what is the number one leadership lesson from that hyper growth phase that you have intentionally applied on this on this startups like e-personal e-bike one?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of lessons, right? As you can imagine, that definitely shapes you. Any experience can shape you over multiple years and how do you run and operate. I think it has, of course, given me a lot of confidence and clarity and security in my style, like, and some
Uh-huh.
things that worked, right?
Uh-huh.
Some of the achievements that I think are helpful to guide me and what, give me more confidence and build, I think, talked about intuition on things and things like that. The other takeaway I've taken is like I think we have to have I want to be kind empathetic leader, but at the same time it also need to allow room for having difficult conversations with different entities, be it your own employees, be it external customers, be it investors, and being able to do that and communicate with transparency, with empathy, but also being clear and
Uh-huh.
what the need or ask is. And I think those are that can be challenging at times, right? But I think those are things that I also want to embrace, continue to embrace as I move forward.
And what is the biggest mistake founders make when they transition from doing to leading?
Yeah, I think I mean, I can't speak for all founders, right? But I think there's, of course, there's expectation set when you're starting the company, you are the IC.
Uh-huh.
You are running everything. You're doing everything, right?
Uh-huh.
As you scale the company, suddenly you are bringing people to do anything. So how do you delegate? How do you let go of things? How do you set the right metrics and success
Uh-huh.
have your teams or your leadership manage? And
Uh-huh.
there are times also you have to actively manage as well. Like some things like let's say are not working, then you have to go into the weeds and be the IC and figure out what's going on. And so
Uh-huh.
there is a dance there. You can't completely let go and expect all the results. You can also not be also actively doing everything, then you're not building a scalable structure. And there's a nuance to it. Certain things you have to let go, certain things you have to lean in. It may change every 3 months, 6 months, which is the hard part. All right.
Uh-huh.
But I have to really go back, be able to assess and discern what matters most for the business and where should I be spending my time. That's a question I ask almost every day. Like, what is the most important thing with the company versus doing a lot of work? Because I can do a lot of work, but
Uh-huh.
is this what was needed for the company?
Right. And let's say, like, so I'm sure that you had a lot of different leaders. So, what is the one non negotiable trait you always look for every leader, like you are going to hire for your company?
I think it's the growth mindset. It's the lack of ego, right? I think you have to have hard conversation. You have to pivot and change and iterate, and especially in a startup, right? If you are too high ego, you're too attached to opinions, you're too attached to your idea or your way. It's hard
Uh-huh.
because you have to adapt and be agile and change, and that
Uh-huh.
can be a concern. But especially for the sometimes even the startup performers come with a heavy weight of ego or heavy weight
Uh-huh.
of like, oh, this is my way, highway, and they get frustrated and angry and upset and disappointed because that is what is driving them,
Uh-huh.
and that can be challenging. Like that is you need the growth mindset, you need the ability to be open-minded. You can of course have strong opinions but loosely held, so you're able to put it in change. I think that I would put as a top of the list.
So, when you are actually hiring a lot of people, a different mindset actually come in the company. How do you keep the culture strong, during those moments?
Yeah, I think the culture it's tough, right? I think especially in a remote world, it gets harder because people are not even engaging on a daily basis with each other. It's like Zoom and then hop on and off. I think the interviewing and hiring process matter. right? Who are you? So it's not just me interviewing myself. There's the team that does it, and we collectively make a decision if does it match our cultural values. We have our own values and way we want to do the work. So do we communicate that clearly to the candidate? Do we write it down in our JDs? Do we, as part of employee onboarding, do we also guide them? Hey, these are the values we have. And then very importantly, as they are onboarded after the 30, 60, 90 days, are we giving them feedback and are they learning the ropes? And sometimes it's not going to be culture fit. Sometimes hopefully it is given the investment. But I think if it's not, then we are very clear, both parties, and hey, this is why it's not working, X, Y, Z. And maybe sometimes maybe they have an interesting approach that maybe we want to evolve. And that's also fine. But I think then there's an honest, open, candid conversation happening.
Right. And you have diversified experience of, managing global teams. And as you have already answered that, the leadership trait you want is growth mindset. So is there any other trait that you want in all, across the globe, like, in all the leaders?
Yeah, I would say I think this growth mindset is ability to change and be agile and open-minded. The other thing is also like having the ownership mindset, right? I think they have to have a strong desire and care for the business. And then instead of thinking like an owner could mean like taking problems and actually addressing it, attacking it, uh, thinking of the best of the business versus best for themselves or their role or their department, right? And I think especially for the earlier you get to startups, there are more issues, more problems, more challenges, more lack of processes. And I think that's something that I also would want to echo, right? And I think it's a collective genius can really shine if each of the individual are able to go and step in and patch up holes or problems and all that as they see it versus, oh, not my issue, not my problem, not my department, not my role. And
Right.
that can quickly deteriorate things and not make us build the strong foundation you want if you want to be a large company.
Right. But, don't you feel that, once you start actually, taking the ownership of each and everything, it is just like, tipping the toes toward, the other department. Like maybe it actually works for the startup, but when you are actually scaling and becoming a big company, things can be, very difficult for other people too.
Oh, 100%, right? I think it's an evolution, right? So, like, ownership mindset doesn't mean that you have to do other departments' work. It could also be like, hey, I see a problem. Can I share it with my sales team that they may be able to do better? Right? So it doesn't mean that you have to take over and act on your own, but are you thinking as a business owner and saying, oh, there's an issue here. This could be a problem. Let me bring it up to the right party. Let me share it with the right party. Oh, there's nobody doing it. How about I step in and do it for short run and then find a scalable solution what that is? I think it means a lot of that. It doesn't mean always doing it all yourself, right? Because then it as you said, right, as you're scaling, you're building a foundation, you're building structures and processes and teams and which can be called bureaucracy, but I think that's what the companies need over time, right? You can't have 4 different people doing the same thing and it's just not efficient.
Right. And you have a substantial experience of working with VCs, like, you are a serial entrepreneur, founded many companies, right? What is the one best advice you ever got from any VC?
I remember one of them, I had this conversation with this person. And I think they told me what my job is, which was really helpful because it was like a one conversation and I always remembered it. And they said my job is number one, like these are the couple of items. I am fundraising. That's my number one job. Nobody else does it. I do it. Right. And I think I carry that. If there's no funds in the bank, there's no company. Right. So
Right.
that's one. Right. So that's number one. Number two is I'm setting the strategy of the company and what we are doing and not doing. Right. And it comes from me as the CEO. And number three is hiring. That's the third job I'm doing in terms of hiring, which connects with the culture as well. Right. Am I getting the right people? Am I letting go of the people who are not right? And I'm making those decisions. And then finally, startups have to do earlier is like you are still the IC and many different topics. And then are you prioritizing and focusing? That was helpful. Like, somebody just give me a couple of bullet points as I think of what my jobs are and what is not my job. And as I said, my job is not to be the sales manager, the marketing manager, all of those things. Those are things are secondary. This is what I have to do in terms of the layer of things.
Right. Right. And you are a busy CEO, I can understand, right? How do you keep yourself interested in learning new things and stay excited about the world?
I mean, I think that's I just as I'm a curious individual, which I guess may be true for many startup founders because they are like interested and excited for things. I am yeah, and I think I do there's value in disconnecting and hearing podcasts like this one or reading books or biographies or even like stuff that's not work related because it gives your chance for your brains to step out, disconnect, and come back with fresher new perspectives. I also have my own hobbies outside. I do yoga quite a bit and all that. So there are things I do. I went running, like that in a way. I mean, I'm an optimizer at heart, but like even doing other things, I've kind of know I am optimizing to be even more effective at work.
Uh-huh.
Which so yeah, I think those are all important. I think there's of course working hard and working efficient, as you know, like there's a big talk, so topics about that. So I am always trying to discern what are the most important things. I write down stuff before I wake up, after I wake up, and say, okay, these are the things that are in my mind that are the most important, and then accordingly go after them. And and it's a continuous evolution.
Uh-huh. Thank you. And last but not the least, one advice you would like to give to early stage startups or entrepreneurs or people who actually want to be an entrepreneur. One piece of advice for them.
Well, I'll maybe said, I know you said one piece, but I will club two things together. I think my suggestion would be to choose something that you're really passionate about or you really believe in. And it could be anything. And then the attached to that is to not give up. That's it, right? It's a, yeah.
Thank you, Chinmay, and it was very excited to have a podcast with you. And we look forward to see more pandas in the road. Thank you so much. Thank you.